Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Jefferson Davis over at blindphotography.us. I hope you guys are having a great day, great afternoon, great evening, whatever it is in your time, in your space, in your place. I hope you guys are doing good. I wanted to catch up with you and tell you that I will be doing a podcast every week now. May not, some weeks will be good, some weeks will be bad. That's just the nature of it, but we're going to get it done and we're going to do a good podcast. Next week, I'm going to, catch you up on what's going on. But next week, we're going to have my wife on here and we're going to ask her some questions about what it is to deal with a blind guy as a husband. So that'll be entertaining. But this week, I'm going to be a little serious and a little boring, but not terrible. But we're gonna try to be a little serious today. So blind photography, the first word there is blind, right? So that is part of my life and I have to deal with it. The other part's photography. That's the fun part. I love that. That's part of my life too. But the blind part is definitely a big part of it. And I haven't caught up with you guys in a while. So what happened was in April, I was classified by an eye doctor that I'm legally blind. I only have 18 degrees of peripheral vision in one eye and nothing in the other. So I'm legally blind now. I went to the eye doctor. They did a visual field test, and they decided that now I'm legally blind, which in some ways is good because now I can say in certain circumstances, depending on what it is, like fishing license, right? Like if I want to go fishing, well, you don't need a license if you're blind in the state of Arizona. And I found that out after I bought a license. So the state refunded my license once I called and said, "Hey, why didn't you guys tell me when I called you that I told you I was blind? Why didn't you tell me there was a statute that stipulates that I don't have to have a license if I'm blind?" Oh, I didn't know about that one. Like, well, you sell a fishing license, you should know about it. So they refunded my money. Good for them. So there's situations where it is good that I have that classification, that I'm legally blind now. Because here's the issue with going blind. If it is a gradual thing, or even let's do the gradual thing because that's where I'm at, right? So January 2024, I was told that you'll be blind, or you could be blind in 2 years. You have optic atrophy caused by um, septo-optic dysplasia, SOD, and kicked off and made worse by COVID. So it is degrading faster than it would have without COVID 3 times in a row. So and they don't like to admit stuff about COVID, okay? But they don't know everything, and now they're having to admit that they don't know everything. All the after effects of COVID. So COVID, I already had a condition that was going to cause me to go blind, but I probably wouldn't have went, to this severity until I was retired, and then it wouldn't have really mattered. It would have still sucked, but it wouldn't have mattered as much. But here is my issue with society. Now, I love my country and I love the state of Arizona, but I was told in last January that I was going to go blind. I had my doctor filled out a thing for um, training with that was in South Carolina, the Commission for the Blind, to get some not monetary assistance but training for the cane and stuff like that. So I had that, but there is no It is a big deal to go blind. It is a huge, huge freaking deal. I can't understate it to go blind. It is like, and when you gradually go blind, it is like part of you dies every day. Uh, and I'm pretty much over that now. I didn't sit around crying about it all the time, but it is a big freaking deal because I went from somebody that was independent. I was married, had a great life, loved my wife, and I still do. And she has been so helpful and so instrumental in helping me with this. She has been a blessing. And next week, we're going to give her a really hard time, okay, guys? So, when she's on here, finally getting her to do a podcast with me. So, they told me that I went from driving, I probably shouldn't have been driving at that point, but 3 different eye doctors told me, do not drive anymore. So, I quit driving. But I went from driving independent to needing people to drive me around to needing somebody to take me back and forth to work to being dependent on others. And when I was younger, before I had my license, and I didn't get them until later in life, I was in my 30s. I was 34 when I got my driver's license. So I remember what it was like to be dependent on others, and it sucks. But that's why I wanted the blind cane training, and I'm going to get into that, and I swear I'm not going to bloviate long, but there was no financial assistance. There's nothing. If you, just leave me out of it, but if you find out tomorrow, hey, you're going blind, you can't drive anymore, you can't ride a bicycle, all you can do is use this cane, what are you going to do? How are you going to get to work? How are you going to go to the grocery store? How are you going to buy here was a phone for me on Valentine's and my wife's birthday. Valentine's, I could still kind of see the cards okay, but by her birthday in May, I couldn't. It was very hard to see the cards, to pick out a card for her. But how are you going to get there? How are you going to get somewhere to? So then everybody knows everything. So if you want to go buy a card for your wife or for somebody, or go get a hamburger, then everybody know and be independent. Be married but still have some independence. Everybody knows about it because you have to ask for a ride, right? So the blind cane is very important. But there is no monetary help at all if you're not legally blind. They don't care if you're partially blind. I've been blind in one eye my whole life. They don't give a rip. They'll give you a license and tell you good luck. But my vision was so bad that I couldn't drive. But it wasn't so bad that I couldn't draw disability as a stopgap while I trained to do something else. So for a year and a half, a year and 4 months, I was in that middle area, and some people were in it gray area for years. I've been in the gray area a lot longer than a year and a half, but from the time that I couldn't drive and had no independence anymore till I was classified as legally blind, it was a year and 4 months. There's no help. If I hadn't had family in between while the job thing was, I was out of work for a month. If I hadn't had family to help, then I would have been on the streets. Not for a month. I would have eventually fixed. If I would have missed a mortgage payment, I would have, picked it back up. But it would have been bad. We didn't have food to eat. We were nearly starving by the end of the month. It was horrible. There's no help. They don't care. And we went to the local church, and you had to basically, and it was a church where we donated money and we volunteered at, and it was like 10 pages of crap paperwork to get food donation. It was a big deal, and I know they have to do stuff because of drug addicts, or people selling the food, coming and taking the donation and selling it, or people that don't need the donation and taking it anyway. But it was a major hassle, and we never did get a food donation. And on that, being reminded of that, I'm glad I don't go to that church anymore and donate to them. So if without family, it would have been mostly my mom. It would have been a lot harder than it was. And my family and friends at work, they would take me, and my wife, would take me to work and then pick me up and blah, blah, blah. So a lot of people helped. But society as a whole and our government as a whole didn't give a rat's butt. Like, you're a white boy, you can still work. Don't worry about it. Get to work. So I mean, that's just the facts of it. So until you're classified as legally blind, there's no help for you. So on that standpoint, I'm glad I'm legally blind. I'm not glad that it has come to this point. It sucks. I'm a photographer. That's all other than, being a good husband and a good son and a good brother. I try to be these things. Um, Photography and being a good Christian, going to church and helping people. The other thing in my life is photography. I have, for 40 years, been in love with photography, with cameras and film and capturing it because I knew my perspective with one eye was pretty unique, and I've been told all my life I would go blind, so I didn't know how long. I took a lot of pictures, folks. So it's a big part of my life. I mean, there's the blind thing, and then there's the photography thing. Then I heard somebody recently tell me that it was time for me to forget photography. It wasn't my wife. She's very supportive. Um, Forget about it, because just fade away that part of your life. You get where you can't see anymore. Just don't worry about it. And then that really bothered me, and I got mad about it. But people are allowed to think what they want. But photography is who I am. If you took three things, this is a good question for you guys. So if you had passed away or whatever, I mean, I don't want that to happen to nobody or me or whoever, right? We're all going to die at some point. So if your wife or your friends or your family had to put three things into a box that represented your life, what three things would they be? And I told my wife what I thought they would be. Now her answer might be different. I haven't asked her, but I would say a camera, a Bible, and maybe a cowboy hat. I haven't made mine up for the third thing. Somebody suggested a blind cane. A blind cane is a tool that I use, but it does not represent me as a person. I'm glad it's there, but it doesn't represent me. It's part of who I am. I'm not ashamed or what I do. I use it every day. Everybody sees me with it, but it's not. It's a thing. But I'm rambling now. But speaking of the cane, okay. So 2 weeks ago, I had went to the coffee shop, a local place called Common Grounds here in Payson, Arizona. I usually go up there on Mondays, or usually once or twice a week, usually once. It's not that expensive for coffee, but it is money that I don't need to be spending. Not that I have a lot of it anyway. So I went up there for coffee. I sit around with the guys and talked, and that's the main reason for going. I don't go for the coffee. The coffee's good, but it's not, I grind my own beans here at the house, so I'm pretty serious about my coffee, and I'm happy to stay at home and drink it. So anyway, so I talked to the guys, and as I'm leaving, I crossed the road, and then I kept on going down the sidewalk, opposing traffic, following the laws as I am supposed to follow them as a pedestrian. And I get to another intersection, and it's kind of a weird when the road opposing that crosses kind of comes in at an angle. So, as I've said in the beginning of this, I can only see out of a straw out of one eye, right? So I have to turn and face whatever I want to see because I can't see it directly. So, I look around like like a crazy person trying to see stuff because I can't see it. I can only see, like my monitor here is a 27-inch. I can't see the whole thing, even though I'm 2 feet away from it. I can only see a section of it at a time. So if we go to watch a movie, I'm rambling again. If we go to watch a movie, then in order to see the whole screen, we have to sit near the back. So I get to this intersection. It's a four-way stop. It's a 2-lane little country roads, nothing major, not a big road. And I hear a car approaching um, to my right, and it's approaching. It's about, I would guess, with my limited vision, about 30 feet away from the stop sign. Well, they're supposed to stop, right? Theoretically. So the traffic is coming the opposite way. There's no cars in the other lane, so I go to cross at the crosswalk, right? And as I get halfway across, I hear an engine rev. So I happen to look, and the car almost took out my cane. It's about a foot from me. I had to jerk my cane up, and I saw it was a white car, and it looked like a lady in it, so I shook it because she slowed down. She knew she was wrong. So I got to the other side as she sped away, um, and I looked back, and I could see a police emblem, on a car. And I know what the colors are, so I knew what it was. I can't read word police, but I knew what it was. So I waved him over, and he came over, and I said, "Did you just see that?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm sorry about that, sir. People, they get busy, they're not paying attention." I was like, "You going to go after her?" "Well, I'm sorry she made a mistake. People make mistakes, And I just threw my hands up and walked off. So he didn't bother going after her. He saw what happened, and she blew through the stop sign as well. But he didn't do nothing about it. So um, I called, I made a big Facebook post about it because she almost hit me. And that happens regularly, but the fact that a town officer saw it and didn't bother doing anything about it, that was the problem. So I made a big Facebook post and made a big deal about it, um, and nothing happened. Well, a lot of people were, sorry that happened to you, and God bless them for that. Sorry you had this issue, sorry the officer was like that. Um, so a lot of people were saying in this Facebook post that the law doesn't protect the pedestrian, much less a blind pedestrian. And I'm like, the law. I never read the law for the blind in the state of Arizona, even though my degree is in criminal justice. So I went online and found out, to my horror, to my shock, that in the state of Arizona, the statute for hitting a blind pedestrian or a blind pedestrian or their service animal, the statute involves blind people and their service animals, but it also goes over what drivers are supposed to do when they see a blind pedestrian and if they hit a blind pedestrian or their service animal. So it's Arizona Statute 11-1024. And I've used a screen reader to read it several times, and that's what I use for anything. It's not a huge statute, but I get a headache otherwise. So, in the state of Arizona, if you hit a blind person or the service animal, but let's concentrate on the person for a moment, it is a Class 2 misdemeanor, which is $750 or potentially 4 months in jail if you can't pay $750. So you can put me in a wheelchair for the rest of my life, and it's only $750 or 4 months in jail. This, my friends, is a problem. It is a big freaking problem. So I want to change the law that if you hit and you seriously injure a blind person, you lose your license, not to mention pay huge penalties, and then that blind person can civilly sue you. So I've been told by several people that, well, I'm sure the officer would tag on more charges, right, for reckless endangerment and speeding or whatever it is, if you get injured. Yeah, they could totally do that, but they don't have to, and that is the issue. And I'm not trying to, we live in a constitutional republic where individual rights reign, and I love that. But my rights reign as well. Just because I am blind doesn't mean that my rights stopped when I was classified as blind. My rights did not stop when I started using a cane. In fact, I should have more rights because I can't see. It's a big freaking deal to not be able to see. It's like looking through a freaking straw, and I'm glad to be able to see that, but I can't see anything to left or right. And I have proof of this. Uh, so it's a big deal, folks. So I have called every congressman for my district in the state of Arizona. Well, there's two of them. There's a black man and Congressman Blackman, and I can't remember the other one's name, and the female state senator for the 7th District of Arizona, and the governor's office. I have called all of them. Now, right now, the Congress legislature is out of session, so they're off, having their summer break, and they won't be back until June 4th. But I'm going to continue calling and harassing the living crap out of somebody because this is insane. You can put me in a wheelchair and it's $750. For $750, some people might think it's fun and go take out blind people, or pedestrians in general. And it's horrible. It's a joke. So I want this changed not only for me. I mean, I don't want to get hit by anybody. But if I do, I want their lives to be changed as well, forever. I want your license to be revoked for 5 years, and then you can reapply. That's what I want out of this. And a huge fine, of course. But I want your license revoked. And that sort of law is harsh. Yes, it's rough. However, if the public knows, and this would be big news, if the public knows that if they hit a blind person, they lose their license for 5 years, they're going to think twice about hitting a blind person. They're going to be really freaking careful. Now, people make mistakes every day, and I make mistakes, but I'm not driving a 3,000-pound car. I'm driving a 4-pound cane, okay? It's a big freaking difference. So I am going to continue to raise Cain, pun intended, about this until something is done about it. So that's where we are with that. So now let's talk about photography. A few weeks ago, me and the wife went up to the Grand Canyon for a little vacation. We did camping. We went to Grand Canyon. We went to Bryce Canyon. I met up with a friend of mine. He is Analog Survives over on Instagram. Met up with him, and we did a ghost town. We did the old Gunsmoke set, which is in Kanab, Utah. We did a lot of stuff and had an absolute blast. So I took several cameras with me on this trip up to the Grand Canyon, Bryce Canyon, Kanab. Everywhere we went, I took several cameras. So I'll tell you what I took on this trip. I took my Sony A7C II, which I absolutely love, and I used my old Minolta cheap, but really good lenses on it. So I have full autofocus, which is great for a blind person. So all I have to do is take a moment to figure out how I'm going to frame this and try to frame it, which I can't see the entire viewfinder. When I look in there, I can just see a part of it, so I kind of have to look around, take my time at it when I frame stuff. So I took that camera and took about 700 photographs, pictures, whatever you want to call them. And I took the Zeiss Icon Super Iconta, the 521/2, the 6x9 version. Beautiful camera. I love that camera. It is so much fun, but it eats through 120 film like it is. I mean, just if you fire off 8 shots and you're done. I also took, I had a blast with that camera, but I also took the Proud Chrome 6, which was a Japanese camera. It mimics a Mamiya 6 somewhat, but it's not it's not that fancy. It doesn't have coupled autofocus or any kind of rangefinder on it, but it's a similar design, similar body design otherwise. But it's called a Proud Chrome 6. They made cameras with different names back in the early 50s, trying to reach a different market. They made all kind of different crazy names. I don't remember the name of the actual manufacturer, but it's called a Proud Chrome 6. The neat thing about it, and a lot of cameras did this back then, um, they had masks that you could slide or rotate over. And I've put this in a video for you guys, um, to make it a 6 by 4.5 centimeter camera. So instead of getting 8 shots with 6 by 9, 12 shots with 6 by 6, with 6 by 4.5, you get, what is it, 16 shots, so you get an extra 4 shots out of it. And it's beautifully framed. If you want it, sideways, you have to turn the camera sideways, which is it's not designed for, but it still works. I really like the camera, and it's good quality. I think it has a triplet lens, like a Tessar type lens, but it's Japanese, but designed after the triplet. It is coded, so it is color coded. So you could theoretically use color film in it. Wonderful camera. It only goes up to 1/200th of a second. And in an area like I live, where it's sun 12 hours a day or more, hardly any clouds. You 1/200th of a second on 100 film, you run out really quick. So I have to shoot at f11 or f16, which f11 you get really good quality out of the lens with that. Um, and I really enjoyed the shots I got out of it. And one of them I want to put a big blow up on the wall of it. So thoroughly enjoyed that camera. And I also took my favorite camera, the Voigtlander Vito 2A, which when you change, I don't even look at it anymore. I've used it so much. All the Voigtlanders are pretty much the same. The Vitos, I should say, up until you get to the 3, it's a little different. But the 2 and the 2A and the 1, the shutter speeds have clicks. So you flip it all the way over to 1/300th or 1/500th for the one I have. And you click it again, that's 1/250th. Again, that's 1/100th, I believe it is, instead of 1/125. And again, it's 1/50th. Again, it's 1/25. Again, it's, so I don't even have to look at that camera or try. I can't read the numbers, so I can literally click and see and tell where I'm at speed wise. So I go all the way to the right, which is highest speed, and then I click back to where I need to be, and then I advance my film and get ready to shoot. I always set my speed first. Now, there are some cameras where you have to advance the film. I cock the shutter before you change the speed, but those are not as common as the other ones. So that's the way I always do it, and have a blast at it. But I love that Vito 2A. That is like a part of me. It's a great camera. I love it. It is not the best lens in the world. It's a 3.5. I believe it's a 4-element lens. It is not, the top of the line. The Vito 3, if any of you guys have a Voigtlander Vito 3 and you're not using it, you don't like it, send it to me. I'll take it gladly. I don't even have to see to use the stupid thing, because just like the Vito 2A, all I got to do is frame it up, and I shoot landscape most of the time anyway at f8 or f11 or even f16, depending on how bright it is and what speed film I have. So I don't even need to see. But I would love to have a Voigtlander Vito 3. So, but they're like $300 or more for a decent one. And I don't, that's something you don't want to have to buy multiples of to find a good one. When it's a $40 camera and you have to buy 2 of them to get one of them to be a good one, that's not a huge deficit. But when it's $300 a pop, it's a big problem. So you want to find one that's really good. But I would love to have a Voigtlander Vito 3. That would complete my collection. I have a pre-war a post-war, a Vito 2, and a Vito 2A. If I had a Vito 3, that would complete my collection. I'm not a collection guy, but those I would love to have a 3 because I'll sell almost everything else I've got before I get rid of those. Never sell the, well, I would sell the Super Iconta for the right price because it eats film like crazy. But it's a big chunk of film. You know, that's a lot of area. If you get a good sharp print or a good sharp shot out of that thing with, you know, on that much film, you have a lot of resolution to deal with, and you can blow that up till your heart's content. But I took those cameras. I did 5 rolls of 35 millimeter and 5 rolls of 120, and my wife did like 8 rolls or something like that. Six rolls of 35 millimeter. So I had a lot of film to develop. It was a lot. And I actually still have some film in the 2A that has a few shots on it from when we were leaving. So that's technically another roll, but I'm not done with that one. So maybe I'll finish that tomorrow. I don't have a lot of plans for tomorrow. I'm going to go to the coffee shop. I'm going to go ride the bus and do some walking and photograph and have fun. And, you know, make some photographs to make money. But I've not worked on a lot of cameras. I've not done a lot in regards to fiddling with cameras or buying cameras because, you know, budget is tight, and it will be presumably from now on, especially until I get things started or finished. And I'm working, but not full time. I'm working part time because it's very hard for somebody that's visually impaired or blind as I am now to hold down a regular job because they have the same expectations on me that they would on you or anybody. So it's very difficult for me to keep a job. I mean, I've had one job for almost 8 years. They're kind of stuck with me, so to speak. I do a really good job for them, but there's a lot of limitations when I'm working, and it's frustrating for management, I know. I've been there on the management end of that, and you have somebody with disabilities. You feel for them, but it's like, dang, why can't you do your job? Or, you know, it makes things harder for other people. So working part time is what I'm able to do right now, and the training that I'm doing, that's all I can do. If I try to stare at a screen or anything for any length of time, it causes massive headaches, migraines. It's awful. So right now I'm still working, I'm still paying taxes, I'm still contributing to society, and I will until I'm technically retired at 62 or whatever. But it's very frustrating because let's say I apply for disability, and I have asked about that and talked to Social Security about that. But it is a year wait now, estimated, in the state of Arizona. It depends on your state. Now it's Social Security disability is a national thing. So you're applying for, you know, credits earned that you paid in for 40 years. But it's a year wait, even though I'm legally blind and two doctors are corroborated with that. Still have to wait. They're going to take their time. So, but that's that. So cameras, film. I found a great film for a great price. Aristopan 100. They have 100 and 400. The 100, as of last week, the last time I checked, and I apologize, I should have checked before I got on here today, was $4 with an instant rebate. $4.19, which is insane. That's 35 millimeter. They don't have it in 120 yet, but I hope they do. It's made in Germany. It's a great film. I don't know how they're making it for that. It is curly, but it's not the normal curly. You know, normally if you get like a Fomapan, it'll be really curly and it'll try to roll up on you once you pull it out of the development tank, you know, and you go to hang it and it rolls back up with you. This stuff doesn't do that. It's straight in that realm, but in the other realm, the horizontal, it tries to curl up on you, so it's really hard to scan. and I imagine it would be hard to use in the darkroom, irritating. But with a little bit of moisture and I don't know 50, 100 pounds on it, it will straighten out. So it's something to think about at that price. Kent Mirror is my film. That is my go-to film. I love Kent Mirror. I prefer Kent Mirror 100 over Ilford FP4 any day of the week. Ilford FP4 may have more silver, but there's also more grain in FP4 than there is in Pan 100 because it's a higher ISO. Not much, but Pan 100, I shoot it at 80. There's barely any grain. It's a beautiful, beautiful film. It has gone up in price just a tiny bit, but right now when they're still working out the tariff deal, it's still a considerable price. I shot some Ortho 80, a roll of that. That was really interesting because the reds didn't look red and the sky was darker than normal. So that was an interesting film to shoot. Very clean film. I liked it. I love all the Ilford films. They're just too expensive, like Kodak. Kodak is too expensive. I would love to shoot Kodak T-Max, an American-made film, but I can't because the crap's $12 a roll. Why, why would I buy one roll of Kodak T-Max for $12 when I can go buy 3 rolls of Arista 100 for the same price? It's stupid. Yeah, Kodak is the cornerstone, the film to have, and it's great. It's too expensive, and part of that is they did a restructuring. I swear they do that just to shut things down, just to keep the prices high. The biggest problem they have is labor costs, and it's because of where they are in New Jersey. They have to pay those guys, even the guy that picks up the trash, not to say he's not important, but $50 an hour to pick up the trash. It's insane the amount of money they pay these people because the cost of living is much higher. Because the legislatures made it that high, because people wanted this and people wanted that, people wanted this. I mean, it's basically a ghost town all surrounding Kodak. Kodak's like the only employer around there, big employer, that's left. I mean, they're kind of stuck there because they have their manufacturing facility has to be completely dark. It's a big deal to move a big manufacturing facility like that. So I don't know what they're going to do. I would bring in a lot of people that worked a lot cheaper from out of town or something and bus them in every day. I don't know what they're going to do, but labor cost is a big deal, and that's a big part of the cost. I had somebody the other day complaining about tariffs at my other job, and that's the reality. It does cause, but we have inflation. We had inflation before Trump. We had inflation during Trump the first time. It's gotten a lot worse since COVID. And labor costs, those are your driving factors. Tariffs are a factor within that, absolutely. I'm not going to deny it. But these countries, it is only fair that they pay the same thing that we pay. So if they charge us 20%, then we got to charge them 20%. It's only fair. How would that not, be fair? If you buy something from somebody and they say, well, there's a 20% tariff on top of that $100, whatever it is, item. So it's $120, please. But you look at them like they're insane. I'm like, I'm not going to buy that $100 coffee. Let's say a 5-pound bag of coffee beans, right, is $100. Hopefully not, but I'm just saying. So I go to buy a 5-pound bag from one guy of coffee beans. It's $100. Okay, that's a great price. Here's your $100. Well, sir, there's a $20 tariff on that because you're buying it from me. $20 of it's going to my country. Well, I think that's a little ridiculous. I'm not paying the extra $20. So I'm going to go down here to this other guy. He's charging $100, but he's only charging $10 tariff, right? So I'm going to buy from the guy that's only charging the $10 tariff, right? And then when I go to sell my roasted coffee beans for $200, per 5 pound bag. Then, because I'm gonna, I got to make money off roasting the beans, right? So I'm gonna charge $10 on top of the 100. But if the guy comes over that was going to charge me 20, I'm going to charge him 20 because it's only fair. Why should we pay them more than they are paying us? I didn't get into this to get into a discussion about tariffs, but I'm just trying to make an example here. It's just really a stupid argument to say that we got to put the tariffs back where they were. We can't ask people to pay us. That's just crazy. We're the biggest country in the world. We're not. China is ahead of us now. Hate to break your heart, but we are the greatest country other than Israel in the world. But United States, but we got problems. All kinds of problems here. So that's pretty much all I have for you. They came out with the new Kent Mirror 200, Pan 200. A great film. I haven't used it yet. I'm going to order some in the next week or so, and I will let you know how that comes out. I'll shoot it at 200 and then at the prescribed box speed or the box speed, and then what other people have been saying that it's actually 125, and tell you what I think about it in the next episode. And in the next episode, we're going to have my lovely wife, Dina. She is going to come on and I am going to ask her questions about what it is like having to deal with a blind man on a daily basis, because that's got to be fun. And somebody that's a camera nerd. So it should be really funny, unlike this one necessarily. So I hope you guys have a great day. I'll see you on the next one. It's Jeff Davis signing off.